This segment of Delmarva Life is brought to you by Delmarva Chiropractic.
Let's be honest here, most of us are guilty of spending too much time on these, our smartphones, whether it be for work, social media, texting, whatever the case, most of us do it.
Believe it or not, all those taps and swipes actually can add up to hours. And as we're learning, those hours could actually have some serious effects on your health. Reporter Terry Hood has more on the condition some doctors are now calling text neck.
You see it in parks, at ball games, schools, and shopping malls. Essentially, anywhere there are people, there are cell phones, and many teenagers more or less live on them. We've all heard about social concerns from kids spending too much time online, but now it turns out too much texting can literally be a pain in the neck.
That's the normal curve that your body likes, with your head balanced on top of your spine.
Dr. Jim Rogers is a neurosurgeon at Tulsa Spine Hospital. He says the average human head weighs around 9 pounds, but bending your head forward changes your body's dynamics.
Bioengineers have determined that the head weighs 20 pounds when you're forward flexed 15 degrees, and it weighs 40 pounds, stresses on your back, when you bend 30 degrees forward.
At 45 degrees, a prime texting position, your head is putting almost 50 pounds of pressure on your spine. A chiropractor in Florida first came up with the term text neck to describe the problem, and now has a whole institute devoted to what he calls a global epidemic affecting millions.
So you're going to stand up nice and tall.
Mark Bearden of Sky Fitness and Wellbeing isn't quite so dramatic, but says he frequently sees the effects of text neck on the young athletes he trains.
When did you first start noticing this as a trend?
When I started dealing with some younger athletes here at Sky, and I started noticing that their ability to keep their spine neutral and their ability to extend their hips, they were limiting, and they all were going in the C pattern.
And remember, these are athletes he's talking about, kids who are motivated and physically active. Kids like 13-year-old Tara Hall.
She's a very, very hard worker.
And yet, when it comes to technology, there's a problem.
Come home, you've got TV, you've got, however many 400 channels. You got Netflix, you've got the iPad, you've got the cell phone in your lap.
Tara admits she feels the effects on her body.
Sometimes my lower back's not flexible or aches sometimes.
Diagnostic testing in January placed the blame for those back problems right here on this little device.
Were you surprised?
Yeah, kind of, because I never thought that it would happen to me.
This will help strengthen your trunk.
Mark Bearden says for athletes like Tara, the problems associated with text neck can have a direct correlation to performance.
They don't run as fast when they're playing their sports. They don't jump as high. They're more prone to injury. Walk it back in, okay?
But it's not just an issue for athletes, or kids for that matter. Adults are seeing the symptoms too.
Generally, it affects them when they sit in a car. It affects them whenever they're reading a book. It affects them even at their job, because it can cause some chronic neck pain, cause some chronic headaches.
Well, this is our normal neutral position.
Dr. Rogers says it can even affect lung capacity and may ultimately require surgery.
I see patients all the time that come in and say, well, I wish I'd known this was going to happen to my spine. I'd have taken better care of myself. Well, now it's a chance for young people to hear about this and maybe take some proactive steps that might lessen their problems in the future.
Okay, so trainer Mark Bearden also says that just after a few months of training, he sees a big difference in Tara. Now get this, down the road, we're actually talking long-term health issues. Text neck could also lead to migraines.
Oh, I don't doubt it at all. Well, there are a lot of other ways we can end up with aches and pains, and this is usually the time of year that we do it. With warmer temperatures, we're all trying to get out into the yard and get all the gardening done in one day. I'm guilty. Or it's time to get back in shape so you can play on that softball team or try 18 holes of golf after being sedentary all winter. Well, the doctors at Delmarva Chiropractic say it's better to address pain early in the season so you don't end up spending the summer benched. This time of year, Dr. David Brown not only sees sports injuries, but injuries received from those just trying to get things done.
Spring has started, everyone's out gardening, throwing out 8, 10, 12 hours out there, and they haven't done anything all winter. So, when you're talking about sports and sports chiropractic, it's just not the athlete, it's the weekend warriors, it's the people who are getting into it, again, for the first time or, at the beginning of a new season.
treatment of sports injuries or injuries caused from just plain overdoing it have a lot in common.
The whole sports chiropractor goes basically outside the spine. We look at the biomechanical model. Everything in the body is basically related. So, you know, the spine has a pronounced effect on the lower extremities. Well, the feet, the knees have a pronounced effect on how the spine actually works and functions. So we actually look at both models.
In other words, if a patient has a back pain, Dr. Brown wouldn't necessarily start with the back.
Generally, a history is the best way to go. You can go through a big, thorough history. You can measure people's feet. You look at their gait biomechanics, their stride length, their width, how much rotation is occurring in the hips and the pelvis, how much lateral sway is occurring. But the history is going to be the best one, especially when you're dealing with athletes.
And treatment is never a one-size-fits-all solution.
It's all pieces of the puzzle. There's no such thing as the right answer. And if you look at people who manage pain, you have chiropractors, you have massage therapists, physical therapists, podiatrists. You know, it just goes on and on and on. No one has a complete right recipe, but there's always pieces to the puzzle. Rehab is incredibly beneficial. Soft tissue work is incredibly beneficial. Making sure people's footwear and foot biomechanics is incredibly important. Having an appropriately mobile joint is incredibly important. So there's all these aspects that you have to look at, and it's just another piece of the puzzle to help improve overall outcomes.
Techniques to achieve those outcomes are not limited to chiropractic adjustments. Delmarva Chiropractic is certified to use what's called the Graston Technique.
Graston is a wonderful technique that uses instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. I think is a fancy term for it. But basically what you're trying to do is break down adhesions or restrictions that exist within fascial planes or within fascia to help restore the normal function of the tissue.
Fascia is a thick, tough, elastic type of connective tissue that wraps most structures in the body.
If you ever cut up chicken before, you notice that white stuff that sort of surrounds the muscle. Well, that's fascia. And it helps create compartments. And when you're talking about muscle bellies, those compartments of two opposing muscles need to be able to slide and glide past one another. And there are instances in research that show models that stops occurring. And fascial manipulation will help restore that normal function to the fascia and the soft tissue and muscle as well.
Dr. Brown says depending on how bad your injury is, you probably won't have to spend a lot of time in treatment.
Average treatment plan is about 6 to 12 visits. Okay? We have people that take much, much longer, especially when you start talking about neurological concomitants associated with that. But when you're just talking about a pure biomechanical model, 6 to 12 visits, people are having significant results.
Obviously, the doctors at Delmarva Chiropractic do not want patients to get hurt again, so they offer coaching on certain activities that they should avoid or do differently. And if you would like to learn more about Delmarva Chiropractic and the services they offer, go to our website, wboc.com, click on our picture at the top of the page.
All right, so it is the time of year, after all, for many outdoor do-it-yourself projects, but they don't necessarily have to be DIY to save you money. Up next, Angie Hicks from Angie's List tells us what we need to know when redoing our deck or patio, how you can dream big, enlist the help of talented landscapers, and still save a few bucks.
And after you have your brand new patio, you're gonna need some brand new patio furniture. Coming up, we'll announce the winner of $1,000 worth of outdoor furniture. It could be you. Delmarva Life, we'll be right back.